You'll never own a house like my new husband, my ex-wife said. Her new husband laughed. I said nothing. Days later, they toured the mansion he wanted. I greeted them with, "Welcome to my home." They say silence is golden. I never believed that until the day I watched my ex-wife's face drain of color in the foyer of my Bel Air estate. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, or what felt like the beginning, though really it was closer to the end. The end of my marriage, the end of my patience, the end of the version of myself who believed that love could survive anything if you just tried hard enough. It was a Tuesday evening in March, one of those California nights where the air holds just enough chill to remind you that even paradise has its cold moments. I was sitting across from my wife, soon to be ex-wife, at our kitchen table. On our kitchen table, the one we'd picked out together at IKEA 7 years earlier, when we were young and broke and convinced that assembling furniture together was a romantic adventure rather than a test of marital durability. Sarah had asked for this conversation, said we needed to have clarity, said we needed to be adults about this. Said a lot of things, actually, most of which boiled down to, "I'm leaving you for someone better." She didn't phrase it that way, of course. Sarah was too careful for that, too measured. She'd always been the pragmatic one, the planner, the person who read the fine print and kept spreadsheets for our grocery shopping. Looking back, I should have known, should have seen the signs, should have noticed when she started working late more often, when her phone became a locked fortress, when she started mentioning Todd's name with increasing frequency. Todd from her CrossFit gym. Todd who owned his own marketing firm. Todd who drove a Tesla Model S and wore expensive watches and apparently had opinions about wine regions I'd never even heard of. "I just think we've grown in different directions," Sarah was saying, her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea she wasn't drinking. "We want different things now. You're still figuring things out. And I need stability. I need someone who's established, who has a plan." I sat there in my worn flannel shirt and jeans, the ones with the frayed hem, and nodded slowly. My hands were wrapped around my own mug. Black coffee, no sugar. Because that's what I'd been drinking since I was 16 and started pulling all-nighters. "Someone like Todd," I said. Not a question. She had the decency to look uncomfortable. "This isn't about Todd." "Right. It's not, Marcus. This is about us. About how we're not working anymore. You're a good person. You're kind and smart, and I don't regret our time together. But I need more than potential. I need actualization." Actualization, that's the word she used. Like I was some kind of unrealized asset, a stock that hadn't performed well enough for her portfolio. "You're right," I said quietly, because what else was there to say? She'd already made her decision, already had her exit strategy planned, already had Todd waiting in the wings with his Tesla and his established life and his actualization. She looked surprised, maybe even disappointed. I think part of her wanted me to fight for her, to beg, to make promises I couldn't keep. But I'd learned a long time ago that you can't convince someone to love you. You can't negotiate desire. You can't spreadsheet your way into someone's heart. "You're right," I repeated, meeting her eyes. "We do want different things. And if you're not happy, then this is the best choice." The divorce papers were filed within a week. California community property law meant splitting everything down the middle, which wasn't much. Our apartment was a rental. Our cars were used and paid off. Our savings account had maybe $12,000 in it, the product of years of careful budgeting and dreams of eventually buying a house. A small house. A starter house. Something with a yard where maybe someday we'd have kids. That dream died quietly, like a plant you forget to water until one day you notice it's just brown stems and dry soil. Sarah moved in with Todd within a month. I stayed in our old apartment for a while, surrounded by the negative space where her things used to be. The empty shelf where her books had lived. The bare hooks in the bathroom where her robe used to hang. The silence where her voice used to fill the rooms with plans and schedules and reminders about things I needed to do. I could have told her then. Could have explained. Could have laid it all out. The truth, the whole truth. The reality of who I was and what I'd been doing for the past decade. But I didn't. Because here's the thing about people who only see what they want to see. They're not actually looking. They're confirming. They're collecting evidence for a story they've already decided is true. Sarah had decided I was going nowhere. Had decided I was a perpetual student, a dreamer, a guy who spent too much time in his home office doing computer stuff that never seemed to lead anywhere. She'd made her assessment based on the visible markers of success. The car I drove, the clothes I wore, the fact that I'd never taken her to Nobu or bought her a Cartier bracelet. So I let her believe it. Let her walk away. Let her think she was trading up. And I waited. The waiting wasn't passive, mind you. I've never been good at passive. While Sarah was settling into her new life with Todd, documenting it extensively on Instagram, I noticed. Because even when you're trying to move on, you still check your ex's social media like you're checking a wound to see if it's healing. I was working. I've always been working. That's what Sarah never understood. What she never bothered to ask about. What she assumed was just a hobby. Just me tinkering, just Marcus being Marcus in his little home office, with his multiple monitors and his strange hours. I'm a software engineer. Was a software engineer. Am a software engineer. The labels get complicated when you're doing what I've been doing, but let's stick with the basics for now. I started coding when I was 13, taught myself Python from library books because my family couldn't afford the internet at home. Not reliable internet anyway, not the kind you need when you're trying to learn from YouTube tutorials. And I'd camp out at the public library after school, filling notebooks with code snippets, practicing algorithms on paper, saving everything to USB drives. I bought with money from mowing lawns. By 16, I was freelancing. Small jobs at first, fixing websites for local businesses, building database systems for my high school's PTA, creating custom WordPress plugins for $50 a pop. By 18, I was making more than my mom, who worked double shifts as a nurse just to keep our lights on after my dad left. I met Sarah in college. UC Berkeley, where I'd gotten a full scholarship because my grades were perfect and my sob story was compelling enough for the admissions essay. She was pre-law. I was majoring in computer science. Though I barely needed the degree, I already knew more than most of my professors about practical coding and about real-world systems architecture, about the kind of problems companies actually needed solving. But you can't tell people that without sounding arrogant. And I've never been good at the performance of confidence, the peacocking, the personal brand building. I just liked solving problems, like the clean logic of code, the way you could break down something impossibly complex into manageable pieces, test each piece, debug it, make it work. Sarah liked that I was smart but not showy. Liked that I was stable and kind and could fix her laptop when it crashed. Liked that I didn't party, didn't keep sketchy friends, didn't give her any reason to worry. What she didn't like, what became increasingly clear over our 7 years of marriage, was that I didn't care about the same status markers she did. Didn't want the fancy apartment that we couldn't afford. Didn't want to lease a luxury car to impress her law school friends. Didn't want to spend my weekends at wine tastings or my evenings at networking events making small talk with people who measured success by square footage and brand names. She thought I lacked ambition, thought I was content with mediocrity, thought I was wasting my potential. She had no idea. The company I founded in my second year of college, just a simple SaaS platform for small businesses, nothing revolutionary, just a better mousetrap in a market full of complicated, overpriced mousetraps, had been quietly growing for years. I kept it small, kept it lean, reinvested every dollar back into development, back into infrastructure, back into making the product better, rather than making myself richer. I paid myself a modest salary, $50,000 a year, which was enough to contribute to our household expenses, enough to not raise questions, enough to look like I was doing okay, but not great. The rest went back into the business, into hiring a small team of remote developers, into server costs, into customer support, into building something sustainable. Sarah never asked about the company, never asked to see the books, never asked how we managed to stay afloat when I was only working 20 hours a week at my consulting gigs and spending the rest of my time on what she called my projects. She just assumed I was barely making it, assumed I was one of those guys who'd still be talking about his startup dreams when he was 50, gray, and broke, and wondering where it all went wrong. I didn't correct her. Partially because her disinterest felt like judgment, like anything I said would sound like excuses. Partially because I was so deep in the work, so focused on growth metrics and customer retention and scaling infrastructure, that I didn't have the energy to convince someone who'd already made up their mind. And partially, I'll admit this now, because I was tired of fighting for someone who didn't see me. By the time Sarah asked for a divorce, my company was valued at $47 million. We had 12,000 active business clients. We'd been approached by 3 venture capital firms interested in funding a major expansion. And I'd been quietly fielding acquisition offers from larger tech companies who wanted our customer base and our elegant or user-friendly platform. I hadn't told Sarah any of this. Hadn't told anyone, really. Except my business partner, Dev, and our attorney. It wasn't a secret so much as it was private. My private achievement. My private validation that I knew what I was doing, that I'd built something real. That my instincts about creating value rather than performing success had been right all along. The divorce settlement was straightforward. We split our savings account. She got her car, I got mine. We divided our modest retirement accounts. She didn't ask about my company because, as far as she knew, it was just a little side hustle that brought in pocket change. And because I'd been careful, so careful about keeping business and personal finances separate, about paying myself that small salary, about living below my means, there was nothing in our joint accounts that suggested otherwise. California law said she was entitled to half of any assets acquired during the marriage. And technically, morally, maybe even legally, depending on how you interpreted things, she probably had a claim to a significant chunk of my company's value. But she never asked, never wondered, never thought to look beyond the surface. And I didn't volunteer the information. I'm not proud of that. Not entirely. There's a part of me that knows I should have disclosed everything. Should have been the bigger person. Should have made sure the divorce was completely transparent even if it cost me millions. But there's another part of me. The part that had sat through years of subtle digs about my lack of ambition. Years of comparisons to her friends' husbands who were making partner at law firms or crushing it in real estate. Years of feeling like I wasn't enough. That part felt like maybe she'd already gotten what she wanted. She wanted out. She wanted Todd and his Tesla and his established life. She wanted actualization. And I wanted to move on. Wanted to finally live in the reality I'd built rather than the perception she'd created. So I let her go. Let her take her half of our $12,000 in savings. Let her believe she was making a smart choice, trading up from a guy going nowhere to a guy who'd already arrived. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I sold my company. Not to one of the big tech giants, though they offered more money. I sold to a mid-sized firm that valued what we'd built, that wanted to preserve our culture, that promised to take care of my team. The sale price was $83 million, after taxes, after paying out my business partner, after taking care of my employees with retention bonuses and stock options in the new parent company. I cleared $41 million. I sat in my lawyer's office when the wire transfer went through, watching the numbers populate on my bank account screen, and felt nothing, not joy, not vindication, just a quiet, empty sense of completion, like finishing a very long book and closing the back cover. "Congratulations," my lawyer said, shaking my hand. "You're a wealthy man, Marcus." I nodded, thanked him. Drove back to my apartment in my paid-off Honda Civic and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, engine off, just staring at the steering wheel. Then I cried. Not because I was happy or sad, just because I'd been holding my breath for so long, holding everything together so tightly that now that I could finally exhale, it came out in sobs. I thought about calling Sarah, thought about sending her a message. "Hey, remember how you said I lacked ambition? Funny story," but I didn't. Because what would be the point? She'd made her choice. She was happy, or at least her Instagram suggested she was happy. All smiling photos with Todd at restaurants I couldn't pronounce, weekend trips to Napa, carefully curated shots of their life together. And maybe she was happy. Maybe Todd was exactly what she needed. Maybe I'd been the wrong person for her all along, and the divorce was the best thing that could have happened to both of us. I wanted to believe that. Wanted to be the mature, emotionally evolved person who could wish his ex-wife well and mean it. I wasn't there yet, but I was working on it. What I did instead was start building a different kind of life. The life I'd always wanted but had been too busy, too focused, too married to pursue. I bought a house. Not just any house, a proper house, the kind Sarah used to show me in Architectural Digest. The kind she'd sigh over and say someday, before glancing at me with that look that said someday was probably never, not with someone like you. 8 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, 12,000 square feet, of contemporary architecture perched in the Bel Air Hills, with views that stretched from downtown Los Angeles to the Pacific Ocean. Floor-to-ceiling windows, an infinity pool that looked like it was spilling into the sky. A home theater, a wine cellar that I had no idea how to stock. A garage that could fit 8 cars. A guest house that was nicer than most people's primary residences. I paid $22 million for it. Cash. The realtor kept asking if I needed financing, needed to see payment options, needed time to think about it. I told her I'd wire the money by end of week. She thought I was joking until my attorney called to confirm. It was excessive. It was absurd. It was everything Sarah had ever wanted and everything I'd never thought I needed. I bought it anyway. Not for her, for me. For the kid who grew up in a one-bedroom apartment with his mom, sleeping on a futon in the living room until he was 12. For the teenager who studied by the light of a library lamp because their electricity got shut off again. For the men who'd built something from nothing and had earned the right to live in something magnificent. Also, if I'm being honest, there was a small, petty part of me that bought it because I could. Because someday, not soon, maybe not ever, but someday, Sarah might find out, might realize what she'd walked away from. And that knowledge sat in my chest like a warm coal. Not quite guilt, not quite satisfaction, just heat. I furnished it slowly, carefully. Hired an interior designer named Helena, who understood that I wanted the house to feel like a home, not a showroom. Comfortable furniture. Art that meant something to me, including an original piece by a graffiti artist I'd admired since college, now going for 6 figures at galleries. Books. Real books, the kind you actually read. Not just leather-bound decorations. A recording studio in the basement, because I had always wanted to learn to produce music. A home gym because therapy comes in many forms. I kept my Honda Civic for a few months just because it felt wrong to get rid of it. That car had seen me through college, through my wedding day, through late nights driving home from meetings with clients when I was still building everything. It felt like a betrayal to trade it in just because I could afford better. But eventually I did. Bought myself a Range Rover, understated, practical, the kind of car that doesn't scream, "Look at me," but still gets respectful nods from valets. And then, because life is short and childhood dreams matter, I bought a 1967 Porsche 911 in slate gray. Kept it in the garage mostly. Drove it on Sundays up the Pacific Coast Highway, windows down, pretending I was in a Steve McQueen movie. My mom cried when I showed her the house, walked through every room with her hands over her mouth, touching the walls like she couldn't believe they were real. I'd already paid off her mortgage, set her up with a financial advisor, made sure she'd never have to work another double shift in her life. But seeing her in my house, in this manifestation of everything we'd survived together, everything she'd sacrificed for, that's when it felt real, when it felt worth it. "You did good, baby," she whispered, hugging me in the kitchen that was bigger than our entire old apartment. "You did so good." I still didn't tell Sarah, didn't reach out, didn't make any grand announcements on social media. I barely used social media anyway, my accounts dormant except for the occasional photo of a sunset or a book I'd finished. I was content to live my quiet, suddenly luxurious life in private. Content to enjoy my success without an audience. Content to let Sarah and Todd live their lives while I lived mine. And then, 6 months after I bought the house, I ran into them. It was at a Whole Foods in West Hollywood. I'd stopped in to grab some things for a dinner I was hosting. Dev and his wife, a couple of old college friends, nothing fancy, just people I actually liked spending time with. I was in the wine aisle, debating between 2 bottles of Cabernet I knew nothing about, when I heard her voice. "Marcus?" I turned. There she was, Sarah, looking exactly like herself. Honey blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, yoga pants, and an oversized sweater. That same tote bag she always carried, the one from her law school that was probably falling apart, but she refused to replace because it was perfectly functional. And next to her, a man who could only be Todd. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a polo shirt and expensive jeans, the kind of handsome that comes from good genetics and regular personal training sessions. He had his hand on the small of Sarah's back, a possessive gesture that probably came naturally to him. "Hey," I said, because what else do you say when you run into your ex-wife and her new husband in the organic wine section? "How are you?" Good, we're good. Great, actually. She smiled, but it had that forced quality, that brightness people use when they're performing being okay. Todd, this is Marcus, my ex-husband. Marcus, this is Todd, my husband. Nice to meet you, Todd said, extending his hand. His grip was firm. Of course it was. Sarah's told me a lot about you. I'm sure, I said neutrally, shaking his hand. There was a moment of awkward silence. The three of us standing there, like a tragic Venn diagram of past and present. Sarah's eyes flicked to the bottles in my hands, to my jeans and t-shirt, to the shopping basket with its modest collection of ingredients. I could see her doing the math, making the same assessments she'd always made. Still shopping at Whole Foods. Expensive, but not that expensive. Still dressing casual. Still driving, she'd probably seen my car in the parking lot. Still driving something practical and understated. Still exactly who she thought I was. So, what are you up to these days? She asked, and I could hear the small talk in her voice, the polite distance. Still doing the tech consulting thing? Something like that, I said. Keeping busy. You? She made junior partner, Todd jumped in, his arm wrapping around Sarah's shoulders. Youngest in her firm's history, we've been celebrating. Actually, we just came from looking at houses, ready to upgrade from the condo, you know how it is. Congratulations, no, I said to Sarah, meaning it. She'd always been ambitious, always been driven. Making partner was a big deal. That's amazing. Thanks. She looked pleased, proud. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but it's finally paying off. We're looking at places in Pacific Palisades, maybe Brentwood, somewhere with some space, a real yard. Room to grow. Room to grow. That phrase again. Like space was something you measured in square footage rather than emotional capacity. That sounds great, I said. Todd laughed, that easy, confident laugh of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. Yeah, we're looking at some pretty amazing properties. 5, 6 million range. Nothing crazy, but, solid investments. Real estate in this market, you can't go wrong. Sarah deserves it after all her hard work. You'll never own a house like what my new husband is getting, Sarah said. And there was something in her voice. Not quite pity, not quite smugness, just statement of fact. We're talking 5 bedrooms, ocean views, the whole package. I stood there holding my 2 bottles of wine, looking at my ex-wife and her new husband, and felt something shift in my chest. Not anger, not even hurt. Just a clarity, sudden and sharp, like a camera lens snapping into focus. She still didn't see me. Even now, even standing right in front of me, she was looking through me, past me, at the version of me she'd decided was true. The guy who'd never quite make it. The guy who was fine with fine. The guy she'd been right to leave behind. You're probably right, I said quietly. Todd laughed again, not cruelly, just with the unconscious confidence of someone who'd always been on top. Hey man, no shame in it. Not everyone needs the McMansion, right? I'm sure you've got a nice spot. Everyone's got their own path. Exactly, I agreed. Sarah was looking at me with that expression I knew so well, that mix of concern and condescension, like she was worried about me, but also grateful she'd escaped. Are you doing okay, Marcus? Really? I'm good, I said, and I was. I really was. Actually, I'm great. Really happy with how everything worked out. Good, that's good. She squeezed Todd's hand, which we should get going. We have another showing in an hour, but it was good to see you. Take care of yourself, okay? You too, I said. They walked away, Todd's hand back on Sarah's back, their bodies angled toward each other in that way couples do when they're still in the honeymoon phase. I watched them go, then looked down at the wine bottles in my hands. I bought them both. Grabbed a third one, too, something expensive that the label said was from Napa, because why not? Then I finished my shopping, loaded everything into my Range Rover, and drove home to my house in the hills. I told Dev about the encounter that night, after everyone had left from dinner. We were sitting on my back terrace, the city spread out below us like a carpet of lights, working through the last of that Napa cab. Let me get this straight, Dev said, leaning back in his chair. She actually said you'd never own a house like theirs? To your face? Pretty much. While you were literally standing in a Whole Foods, buying wine for a dinner party at your $22 million mansion. That's the one. Dev started laughing, that deep, full-body laugh that had been his trademark since we met freshman year in algorithms class. Oh man, Marcus, you can't write this stuff. You literally cannot write this level of irony. It's not irony, I said. It's just sad, kind of. She still sees what she wants to see, still believes the story she told herself about who I am. So tell her, call her up, send her a text, invite her over for a tour. Dev gestured at the house behind us, at the infinity pool glowing blue in the darkness. Show her what she walked away from. I shook my head. What's the point? The point? The point is justice, man. Cosmic justice. She judged you, counted you out, left you for some marketing bro, and then had the audacity to look at you with pity while bragging about their $6 million house? You get to correct that record. By what, rubbing my wealth in her face? That's not who I am. No, by living your truth. Dev leaned forward, his voice serious now. Look, you're not trying to hurt her. You're not trying to win her back. But she said something that was objectively, factually wrong. She made a claim about your life that isn't true. Don't you think she should know? Don't you think reality matters? I swirled the wine in my glass, watching the legs run down the sides. She'll find out eventually. Someone will tell her. Or she'll see something online, or you could tell her yourself, on your terms. Not to be cruel, but to be honest. To finally actually be honest with her about who you are and what you've built. I thought about that, about honesty, about all the ways I'd hidden myself during our marriage, kept my ambitions quiet, let her believe what she wanted to believe, and about how I'd let that same pattern continue even after we divorced, even when I had no reason to hide anymore, except that it was easier, less complicated, less dramatic. But there was something to what Dev was saying, something about owning your truth, about not apologizing for your success or minimizing it to make other people comfortable, about standing in your reality and letting people adjust to it rather than contorting yourself to fit their perceptions. I'll think about it, I said. You do that. Dev raised his glass. But man, when you do decide to tell her, please let me be there, or at least call me immediately after. This is going to be legendary. I laughed. You're terrible. I'm invested. There's a difference. We finished the bottle and said our goodbyes. After Dev left, I walked through my house, turning off lights, locking doors, stood in my living room and looked out at the view, the city lights, the distant mountains, the pool reflecting stars. This was my life. Not the life I'd planned, not the life Sarah had wanted, but mine. Built by my hands, my mind, my years of quiet work. And maybe Dev was right. Maybe it was time to stop hiding it. Not to brag, not to prove anything, just to exist in it honestly. The universe, it turns out, has a sense of humor. 2 weeks after running into Sarah and Todd at Whole Foods, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. 90% of unknown calls are spam these days, but something made me pick up. Hello? Hi, is this Marcus Chen? Speaking. Oh, wonderful. Mr. Chen, my name is Vanessa Hartley. I'm a real estate agent with Pinnacle Properties, and I'm calling because I have clients who are very interested in viewing your property at 1247 Skyline Drive. I blinked, looked around my living room like the house might explain this to me. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. My house isn't for sale. Oh, no, I apologize. Let me check my notes here. There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling. Ah, I see. The listing I have is for 1245 Skyline Drive. I must have transposed the numbers. I'm so sorry to bother you. No problem, I said, about to hang up. Although, Vanessa continued, her voice taking on that professional, persuasive tone realtors perfect. If you ever are interested in selling, I'd love to speak with you. The market for luxury properties in Bel Air is absolutely incredible right now, and a home like yours would command a significant premium. I have very motivated buyers. I'm good, I said, but thanks. Of course. And again, I apologize for the confusion. Have a wonderful day. I hung up and thought nothing more of it until the next morning when my phone rang again. Same area code, different number. Marcus Chen? Yes? Mr. Chen, this is Robert Steinberg with Premier Realty Group. I understand you might be open to discussing your property at 1247 Skyline. Where did you get that idea? Oh, I apologize if I was misinformed. One of my clients mentioned they'd heard the property might be coming on the market. They're extremely interested. Would you be open to a conversation about... No, sorry, not interested in selling. Of course, I understand. But if you'd allow me to just share what kind of offer we'd be prepared to... I appreciate it, but no, thanks. 3 more calls that week, all real estate agents, all claiming to have interested buyers for my property, all mysteriously certain that a house that had never been publicly listed might somehow be available. I was irritated by the fourth call. Whoever had leaked my address and started this rumor mill could go to hell. I made a mental note to increase my property's privacy settings, maybe look into better security. And then, on Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Dev and I had plans for later that evening, but not until 8. I checked the security camera feed on my phone and saw a woman in a burgundy blazer standing at my gate, looking professional and determined. I pressed the intercom. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Chen, I'm Vanessa Hartley with Pinnacle Properties. I know I called you a couple weeks ago, and I apologize for showing up unannounced, but I'm here with clients who are extremely interested in viewing your home. I know it's not listed, but they're prepared to make a very compelling offer. Would you be willing to give us just 15 minutes? I promise that we won't take more of your time than that." I should have said no. Should have told her to make an appointment through proper channels if she was that serious. Should have protected my Saturday afternoon from this intrusion. But something made me curious. What kind of buyers were so interested in a house that wasn't for sale that they'd show up at the owner's gate with their agent? "Who are your clients?" I asked. "A lovely couple, professional, pre-approved for financing up to $10 million. They've been looking in the area for months, and when they heard about your property, they were absolutely taken with it. Please, Mr. Chen, just a quick walkthrough. I promise we'll be respectful of your space." 10 million. These people thought my house was worth 10 million. They'd be disappointed when they realized it was worth twice that, but I was curious enough to see who'd be bold enough to doorstep a stranger's home. 15 minutes on I said, and buzzed them in. I walked to my front door and opened it, ready to meet Vanessa and her eager clients. The door swung wide. I stepped out onto my front landing, the afternoon sun bright and warm on my face. And there, walking up my driveway, was Todd, with Sarah beside him, and Vanessa, the realtor, trailing slightly behind, looking pleased with herself. I stood there, hand still on my doorknob, and watched them approach, watched the exact moment they saw me, watched Sarah's step falter, watched Todd's confident stride stutter, watched both of their faces cycle through confusion, recognition, and something that might have been horror. "Welcome to my home," I said. The silence that followed was the kind you could feel, the kind that has weight and texture and presence, the kind that rings in your ears even though there's no sound. Sarah had gone pale, not dramatically, she wasn't the fainting type, but pale enough that I could see it even from 20 feet away. Her hand was gripping Todd's arm, fingers tight on his sleeve. Todd looked like a man who'd just had reality reorganize itself around him. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Words came out. Vanessa, bless her heart, was the only one operating on normal social protocols. She walked forward with her professional smile, hand extended. "Mr. Chen, thank you so much for agreeing to show the property. I'm Vanessa Hartley. We spoke on the phone, and these are my clients, Sarah and Todd Morrison. They're absolutely thrilled to see the home." "Morrison," I repeated, taking Vanessa's hand and shaking it automatically while looking at Sarah. "You changed your name." Sarah found her voice, though it came out smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Marcus, this is your house?" "Last I checked." I stepped back from the doorway, gesturing inside. "You wanted a tour, right? 15 minutes?" "There must be some mistake," Todd said, finally finding his words. His face had gone red, that aggressive flush people get when they're embarrassed and angry at the same time. "You live here, this house?" "I do. But this house is..." He looked at Vanessa. "You said this was being sold by a tech entrepreneur, someone who'd developed properties in the area." "I said it was owned by a tech entrepreneur," Vanessa corrected gently. "Mr. Chen sold his software company last year and purchased this property, one of the finest homes in Bel Air, as you can see." Sarah was still staring at me. "You sold your company?" "I did. For enough to buy this house, among other things." "Oh my God," she whispered. Vanessa, still blissfully unaware of the nuclear bomb she'd detonated, checked her watch. "Should we start the tour? I know we promised to be quick." "Actually, Todd said quickly, "I don't think we should probably..." "Come in," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. How steady. "You came all this way, might as well see what you came for." I walked inside, leaving the door open behind me. After a moment, I heard footsteps following. First Vanessa's heels on the marble, then slower, heavier steps that had to be Todd. Then finally, tentatively, Sarah. They followed me into the foyer. The two-story foyer, with its floating staircase and the Basquiat print I'd bought at auction, the one Sarah had once shown me in a magazine saying, "Wouldn't it be amazing to own real art someday?" I'd agreed then. I owned it now. Vanessa was already in full realtor mode, gesturing to the high ceilings, the architectural details, the flow of natural light. As you can see, the bones of this house are absolutely spectacular. 2,200 square feet just on this level, with sightlines through to the living area and out to the pool. The marble in the foyer is Calicut gold imported from... I know the specs, I said gently. I bought the house, but please continue. I'm curious what you'd emphasize to potential buyers. She looked flustered for a moment, then rallied. Of course. Well, if we move into the main living area... We walked through the house. Through the living room with its 20-foot ceilings and gallery walls, the art I'd collected piece by piece, each one chosen because it moved me, rather than because it was a good investment, though several had tripled in value anyway. Through the kitchen that looked like something from a design magazine because it had literally been featured in a design magazine, the chef's kitchen Sarah had once pinned photos of, on Pinterest with captions like "Dream Kitchen" and "Someday." Todd kept trying to touch things: the marble countertops, the sub-zero fridge, the temperature-controlled wine storage, and then pulling his hand back like the surfaces might burn him. Sarah walked through in silence, her eyes taking everything in with an expression I couldn't quite read. Shock, maybe, or grief, or something more complicated than either. The primary suite is on the second floor, Vanessa was saying, leading us up the floating stairs. But there are actually two primary suites, one on each floor, which is quite rare. Perfect for multi-generational living, or if you like to host guests who appreciate their own space. We walked through the second primary suite, the one I didn't use, the one I'd furnished just because it felt wrong to leave it empty. King bed, sitting area, balcony overlooking the pool, bathroom with a soaking tub and a shower that could fit 6 people, though I'd never tested that capacity. "This is the guest suite?" Todd asked, his voice tight. "One of them," I said. "There are 4 guest rooms total, different sizes, different views, something for everyone. 4 guest rooms," he repeated. "Fameux if you count the casita by the pool, but I've been using that as a home office, so..." Sarah made a sound. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. Something in between. We moved through the rest of the second floor. Through my actual bedroom, the one Vanessa said, "Oh," when she saw, probably realizing from the personal items that this was my active space. Through the home theater, the gym, the library that I'd filled with actual books I actually read. Floor-to-ceiling shelves arranged by genre because I wasn't sophisticated enough to organize them any other way. "Is that a first edition Neuromancer?" Sarah asked suddenly, stopping in front of one of the shelves. It was the first full sentence she'd spoken since we started the tour. I looked at where she was pointing. "It is. You always wanted that book." "I did. So I bought it." She touched the shelf but didn't touch the book. "You never told me about any of this. About selling the company, about this." She gestured vaguely at everything, the house, the success, the reality of who I actually was. "You never asked," I said simply. "That's not fair, isn't it?" Todd had moved to the window, looking out at the view. "This has to be worth, what, 20 million? 25? 22, I said. "I paid cash." He turned to look at me, and for the first time since the tour started, I saw something other than shock in his face. I saw calculation, saw him reassessing, recalculating, trying to figure out how the math worked. "You paid 22 million cash for this house?" The seller preferred cash buyers, made the transaction simpler. "How much did you sell your company for?" The question came out aggressive, accusatory. "That's private," I said calmly. "Enough to make you wealthy," Vanessa interjected, trying to smooth over the tension. Mr. Chen is being modest. The sale was quite significant, made several headlines in the tech world. Sarah was still standing by the bookshelf, her back to us. I could see her shoulders rise and fall as she breathed, could see her hand still resting on the shelf like she needed something to hold on to. "We should finish the tour," I said. "You've got..." I checked my watch. "About 5 minutes left of your 15. We went back downstairs, through the formal dining room I'd never used for anything formal. through the wine cellar that Helena had insisted I needed, now stocked with bottles I was slowly learning to appreciate, through the game room with its pool table and vintage arcade machines because some childhood dreams never die, and finally out to the back terrace, the infinity pool, the cabana, the outdoor kitchen, the view that stretched forever. Vanessa spread her arms like a game show host, revealing the grand prize. And this is really the crown jewel of the property. The outdoor living space is an entertainer's dream. The pool is heated year-round, the kitchen has a built-in pizza oven, and as you can see, the views are absolutely breathtaking. Todd walked to the edge of the pool, looking out at the city below. "This is more than 6 million," he said quietly. "This is, Sarah, this is more house than we could ever—" "I know," she whispered. "I thought you said he was going nowhere. I thought you said he didn't have ambition. I know, Todd, I know." They stood there at the edge of my infinity pool, and I watched them realize what they were looking at. Not just a house, not just a success, but a complete inversion of the story they'd believed. The story Sarah had told herself, had told Todd, had told anyone who'd listen about why our marriage ended. She'd left me because I was going nowhere. She'd upgraded to Todd because he had his life together. She'd made the smart choice, the practical choice, the choice any reasonable person would make. Except she hadn't. She'd left me right before I became everything she'd wanted me to be, or everything she thought she wanted. And now she was standing in the physical manifestation of that mistake, looking at the life she could have had. If only she'd waited. If only she'd asked. If only she'd seen me. "Your 15 minutes are up," I said gently. Vanessa checked her watch, surprised. "Oh my, time flies. Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, you've seen the property now. What do you think? Are you interested in making an offer?" "The house isn't for sale," I reminded her. "Everything's for sale at the right price," Vanessa said with practiced optimism. "And I'm sure if my clients came in with a strong enough offer—" "No," I said firmly, "no, it's not for sale at any price. This is my home. I live here. I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding, but I only agreed to the tour because you were persistent and I was curious. The house stays with me." Of course," Vanessa said quickly. "I apologize for any confusion. But Mr. Chen, if you ever do decide to sell, please, I'd love to—" "I'll keep that in mind." I started walking back toward the house, ushering them all toward the exit. "Thank you for your interest." We walked through the house in silence, through the beautiful rooms, the carefully chosen furniture, the art, the books, the life I'd built. Sarah walked like she was in a dream. Todd walked like he was in a nightmare. Vanessa walked like a realtor who'd just realized she'd dramatically miscalculated. We reached the front door. I opened it, held it, waited. "Marcus," Sarah said, stopping in the doorway, "can we talk just for a minute?" Todd looked at her, then at me, then back at her. "Sarah, we should go." "Just a minute," she said again, her eyes on mine. "Please." I looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time since the divorce. She was the same woman I'd married, same face, same eyes, same way of standing with her weight on one hip when she was nervous. But she was different too. Older, yes, but more than that. Changed by the choices she'd made, by the life she'd chosen. Or maybe I was the one who'd changed. Maybe I was the one who was different now. Maybe we were both different, and this moment was just the universe acknowledging that difference. "What would you like to talk about?" I asked. She glanced at Todd, at Vanessa, at the audience, to whatever she was about to say. "I didn't know. About any of this. You never told me." "You never asked," I repeated. "That's not fair, Marcus. You hid this. You hid your success. You let me think—" "I let you think what you wanted to think," I interrupted, and my voice was still calm, but there was steel in it now. "I didn't lie to you, Sarah. I just didn't correct your assumptions. Because you'd already made up your mind about who I was, about what I was capable of, and nothing I said would have changed that. You could have tried. I was tired of trying. I was tired of being judged. I was tired of feeling like I wasn't enough." I paused. "I built something incredible. I worked for years. I was proud of what I was creating. And I came home every day to someone who looked at me like I was a disappointment, like I was wasting my potential, like I needed to be more like Todd." Todd flinched at that. "That wasn't fair to you," Sarah said quietly. "I should have asked more questions. Should have paid more attention to what you were actually doing instead of just assuming. But Marcus, you can't pretend this is all my fault. You chose not to tell me. You chose to keep this secret. It wasn't a secret. It was my work, my private achievement. And I kept it private because every time I tried to talk about it, you changed the subject. You weren't interested in the details of my business. You were interested in the results, in the markers of success you could see and measure and compare to your friends' husbands. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. Because what could she say? It was true. We both knew it was true. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough. You were always enough. You were always brilliant. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see past my own ideas about what success was supposed to look like. I appreciate that, I said, and I did. It wasn't nothing, that apology. It wasn't enough, but it wasn't nothing. Can we, she hesitated, can we start over? Not as a couple, I don't mean that. I'm with Todd. I love Todd, but as friends maybe? Is that possible? I thought about that. Thought about what it would mean to have Sarah back in my life in any capacity. Thought about whether that was something I wanted, something that would be good for me, something that would be fair to either of us. I don't think so, I said finally. I think we both need to move forward in our separate lives. You've got your partnership and your new marriage and your house hunting. I gestured vaguely at the house behind me, at the life I'd built. I've got this, and I think that's okay. I think we tried and it didn't work, and now we're both where we're supposed to be. She nodded slowly. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. Okay, yeah, you're probably right. Take care of yourself, Sarah. You too, Marcus. She smiled, small and sad. For what it's worth, this house is beautiful. You built something really beautiful. Thank you. She walked down the driveway to where Todd and Vanessa were waiting by their car. Todd had his phone out, probably calling an Uber. Vanessa was already scrolling through her listings, probably trying to figure out how to salvage her day. I watched them drive away, watched the gate close behind them, stood in my doorway in my beautiful house, in my beautiful life, and felt nothing, not vindication, not satisfaction, not even relief, just emptiness. Like I'd been holding my breath waiting for this moment, this confrontation, this chance to prove something, and now that it had happened, I realized there was nothing to prove. Nothing that mattered, anyway. She'd made her choice. I'd made mine. And we'd both have to live with those choices for better or worse. I went back inside, closed the door, locked it, walked through my house, turning on lights as the sun started to set. Made myself dinner in my dream kitchen. Ate it on my back terrace, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. Dev called around 8. You still good for tonight? The new place in Santa Monica? Supposed to have incredible sushi. Actually, I said, I think I'm going to stay in. Long day. Rain check? Everything okay? I thought about telling him, about the tour, about Sarah and Todd, about the whole surreal experience. But I was tired. Tired of thinking about it. Tired of analyzing it. Tired of feeling anything about it at all. Yeah, I said, everything's okay. Just tired. Talk tomorrow. Sure, man. Get some rest. I hung up. Sat in the quiet of my house, the expensive silence of success. Thought about Sarah's face when she saw the Basquiat. Thought about Todd's calculations at the pool's edge. Thought about how hollow victory feels when you realize you're the only one keeping score. The next few days passed in a strange blur. I kept expecting something to happen. A call from Sarah, a message, some kind of follow-up to the weirdness of Saturday afternoon, but there was nothing. Radio silence. Like the whole thing had been a fever dream I'd imagined. Dev finally wormed the story out of me on Tuesday, over lunch at a poke place near his office in Venice. I gave him the short version, the highlights, the key moments. He listened with increasing delight, occasionally interrupting with, "No way," and "You're kidding," and "This is the best thing I've ever heard." So what happened after they left? He asked, spooning up rice and salmon. Did she text you, call, show up at your door with a boombox? Nothing, I said. Complete silence. Really? That's almost disappointing. I was hoping for at least a midnight, I've made a terrible mistake call. She hasn't made a mistake. She's happy with Todd. They're building a life together. Seeing my house doesn't change that. Doesn't it, though? Dev leaned forward. Come on, Marcus. You're telling me she walked through that place and didn't have any regrets? Didn't think about what could have been? Maybe she did. But regret doesn't mean anything if you don't act on it. And she's not going to act on it. She's married, she's moved on, and honestly, so have I. Have you, though? I met his eyes. What do you mean? I mean, why did you let them in? Why did you give them the tour? You could have sent them away. Could have told Vanessa you weren't interested and closed the door. But you didn't. You invited them in, showed them everything. Why? I didn't have a good answer for that. Or rather, I had several answers, and none of them felt complete. Because I was curious. Because I wanted to see Sarah's reaction. Because some part of me wanted her to know what she'd walked away from. Because I'm human, and humans are petty and complicated, and sometimes we do things just to see what happens. I don't know, I admitted. Well, when you figure it out, let me know. Because from where I'm sitting, you're not as over this as you think you are. He wasn't entirely wrong. Over the following weeks, I found myself thinking about the encounter more than I wanted to. Not obsessively, I wasn't sitting around pining for my ex-wife or anything dramatic. But it lingered, like a song stuck in your head, a conversation you keep replaying, trying to figure out what you should have said differently. I started having weird dreams. Dreams where I was showing people through an endless house, room after room after room, and they all looked at me with Sarah's disappointed face. Dreams where I was signing divorce papers, but the papers kept turning into receipts, into bank statements, into proof of purchase for everything I owned. Dreams where I was driving my old Honda and it transformed into the Range Rover and then into a house on wheels, and I couldn't figure out how to steer it. I woke up from these dreams feeling unsettled and vaguely embarrassed, like I'd revealed something about myself I'd meant to keep private. My mom noticed something was off when I came over for dinner one night, about 3 weeks after the tour. She had that mother's radar, that ability to sense when something's wrong even when you're doing everything right. "What's bothering you, baby?" she asked over dessert, her famous coconut cake, the one she'd perfected over years of trial and error. "Nothing's bothering me. Marcus, I've known you for 32 years. Something's bothering you." I sighed, set down my fork. I ran into Sarah and her new husband. They came to see the house. Her eyebrows went up. "They came here? To your house?" "Not on purpose. There was a mix-up with a realtor. They were looking at houses in the area, and the agent brought them here by mistake. Or not by mistake, it's complicated, but yeah. They toured the house, saw everything." "Oh." She was quiet for a moment. "And how did that feel?" "I don't know. Weird, satisfying, but also hollow. Like, I'd won something I didn't want to win." "You didn't win anything," she said gently. "Marriage isn't a competition, and divorce isn't losing." "I know that." "Do you? Because it sounds like you're keeping score." I pushed cake around on my plate. "She said something. At Whole Foods, before the tour. She said I'd never own a house like the one she and Todd were buying. Said it like it was a fact, like she knew exactly who I was and what I was capable of. And it hurt. Yeah, it did. So you wanted to prove her wrong. Maybe, and I don't know. I wanted her to see me. Really see me. Not the version of me she'd decided was true." My mom reached across the table and took my hand. "Baby, some people are never going to see you, no matter what you accomplish, no matter how successful you become. They're too busy looking at their own reflection in you to see who you actually are." That's depressing. It's honest. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can stop trying to prove yourself to people who aren't paying attention. You built something incredible. You should be proud of that for yourself, not because it proves something to your ex-wife. She was right. Of course she was right. That's the annoying thing about mothers. They usually are. "You're right," I admitted. "I know I am. Now eat your cake before it gets all dried out." I tried to take her advice. Tried to focus on my life. My actual present life, rather than dwelling on the surreal encounter with my past. I started taking meetings with people about my next venture. Started exploring new ideas, new problems to solve, new ways to build something meaningful. Got back into the rhythm of work, of creation, of forward momentum. But the universe, as I said before, has a sense of humor. About 6 weeks after the house tour, I was at a charity gala in downtown LA. One of those events I'd started attending now that I had money and people kept inviting me to things. This one benefiting a coding education program for underprivileged kids, which actually mattered to me, so I'd said yes. I was talking with the program director about expanding into more schools when I saw them across the room. Sarah and Todd. Of course they were here. Sarah had always been big on charity work. Looked good for the firm, looked good in general. She was wearing a navy blue dress, her hair up, looking exactly like someone who belonged at events like these. Todd was in a dark suit, his arm around her waist, laughing at something someone had said. I could have avoided them. The ballroom was large. The crowd was thick. I could have steered clear, kept my distance, gotten through the evening without any interaction. But I didn't. Because apparently I'm a glutton for punishment, or because I was curious, or because some part of me wanted to see if the awkwardness would be different in a neutral space, with other people around, under the cover of social nicety. I excused myself from the program director and walked over. Sarah, Todd, good to see you. They turned. Sarah's face went through that same cycle of expressions I'd seen at my house. Surprise, recognition, something like panic. But she recovered faster this time, her lawyer training kicking in, her professional mask sliding into place. Marcus, hi, I didn't know you'd be here. Supporting a good cause? I said easily. The coding education program does great work. That's wonderful. She looked like she wanted to say more, like there were words building up behind her professional smile, but she held them back. Todd extended his hand. Marcus, good to see you. His handshake was firmer than last time, more aggressive, like he was trying to prove something through grip strength. I matched his pressure and let go. You guys doing well? I asked, because what else do you say? Great, Todd said quickly. Really great. We actually just closed on a house, Pacific Palisades. Ocean views, move-in ready. Congratulations. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. Great neighborhood. Really solid investment. That sounds perfect. It's not as big as your place, obviously. The words came out with an edge, but it's nice, really nice, and it's ours. That's what matters, I said sincerely, and I meant it. Size didn't matter. What mattered was whether you were happy, whether you felt at home, whether you could build a life there. Sarah was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Marcus, I've been meaning to call you. After the tour, after everything, I felt like we left things in a weird place. It was a weird situation. It was. But I've been thinking about what you said, about how I didn't see you, didn't ask the right questions. And you were right. I should have paid more attention, should have been more interested in your work, should have been a better partner. We were both learning, I said carefully, both trying to figure out who we were. Sometimes people grow in different directions. That's not anyone's fault. Still, I'm sorry for what I said at Whole Foods, about you never owning a house like ours. That was cruel. Even if I didn't know, it was still cruel. It dismissed everything you'd worked for. I appreciate the apology. She hesitated. Do you think we could get coffee sometime, just to talk? I think we left a lot unsaid in our marriage, a lot unresolved, and I'd like to resolve it, even if we're not together anymore. Does that make sense? I looked at her. At this woman I'd spent 7 years with. This woman who'd known me better than anyone and somehow not known me at all. This woman who'd walked away and then walked back into my life by accident. And I thought about my mom's words, about some people never seeing you, about proving yourself to people who aren't paying attention, about being proud of your achievements for yourself. I don't think that's a good idea, I said gently. I think we both need to move forward. You've got your life with Todd. I've got mine. And I think trying to resolve things from our marriage would just drag us both backward. Oh, okay. She looked disappointed but not surprised. That's fair. That's probably smart, actually. But I hope you're happy, I added, meaning it. I hope the new house is everything you wanted. I hope the partnership works out. I hope you and Todd build something good together. Thank you. And I hope, she paused, searching for the right words. I hope you find someone who sees you. Really sees you. You deserve that. Thanks. Todd had been standing there awkwardly during this whole exchange, and now he cleared his throat. We should probably find our table. Dinner's about to start. Right, of course. Sarah gave me a small smile. It was good to see you, Marcus. You too. They walked away, Todd's hand on Sarah's back again, that same possessive gesture. I watched them go and felt lighter, like I'd been carrying something without realizing it and had finally set it down. Dev appeared at my elbow, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. Was that Sarah? Yeah. How'd it go? Good, actually. I think we finally got closure. The real kind, not the weird kind from the house tour. Good for you, man. He handed me a glass. You deserve to move on, to be happy, to enjoy this ridiculous life you've built. You're right. I raised my glass. To moving on. To moving on, he echoed. We clinked glasses and drank, and I meant it. I was ready to move on, ready to stop thinking about Sarah and Todd and houses and what ifs, ready to focus on the present, on the future, on building something new. But life, as it turns out, doesn't always cooperate with our intentions. 3 months later, I was at Dev's house for his annual 4th of July party. Big backyard, catered food, too many people. I didn't know, but who all seemed to know each other. I was making conversation with a woman named Claire, who did something in venture capital when Dev pulled me aside. Hey, I need to tell you something. Don't freak out. That's never a good opening. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, but Sarah's here. I blinked. What? Sarah, your ex-wife. She's here. Amanda invited her. They know each other through some nonprofit board thing. I didn't know until they showed up. I'm sorry, man. If you want to leave, I totally understand. I looked across the yard and there she was, Sarah, in a white sundress and sandals, her hair down, looking relaxed and summer happy, and next to her, Todd in shorts and a polo shirt, holding a beer and laughing at something. It's fine, I said. It's your party. I'm not going to leave just because my ex-wife is here. You sure? Yeah, we're adults. We can handle being at the same party. And we did. We handled it. We made polite conversation when we crossed paths at the food table. We nodded hello when we passed each other on the way to the bathroom. We existed in the same space without any drama or weirdness or awkward confrontations. It was honestly kind of boring, like running into an old coworker you don't really remember, like seeing someone you used to know but don't anymore. Until the fireworks started. Dev's neighborhood went all out for the 4th. Professional displays, the whole deal. Everyone gathered in the backyard to watch, drinks in hand, faces turned up to the sky. I was standing near the back fence, watching the explosions of color and light, when someone moved next to me. Sarah. Hey, she said quietly. Hey, good party. Dev knows how to throw them. Yeah. She was quiet for a moment, watching the fireworks. Then, I'm pregnant. I turned to look at her, surprised. Congratulations. Thanks. We just found out last week. Haven't told many people yet, but she paused. I wanted you to know. Why? I don't know. Because you were my husband once. Because we almost had this conversation years ago before we decided we weren't ready. Because, she trailed off, because I think I need you to know that I'm happy, really happy, with Todd, with the house, with this baby coming. I need you to know that I don't regret my choice. I understood what she was really saying, what she was really asking. She needed me to release her from whatever guilt she'd been carrying since the house tour. Needed me to tell her it was okay that she'd left, okay that she'd chosen Todd, okay that her life had worked out even though she'd misjudged me. I'm happy for you, I said, and meant it. Really? You'll be a great mom. You think so? I know so. You're organized, you're dedicated, you'll read all the books and make spreadsheets for feeding schedules and be the most prepared parent in the history of parenting. She laughed, a real laugh this time. God, you're probably right. I've already started researching prenatal vitamins. Todd says I'm being obsessive. Todd's right. I know. She was quiet again, watching the fireworks. Do you ever think about it? What life would have been like if we'd stayed together? Sometimes, I admitted, but not in a wishful way. More like wondering about alternate timelines, parallel universes where we made different choices. And do you think we would have been happy in those other timelines? I thought about that. I really thought about it. About who we'd been together, about the ways we'd failed to see each other, about the differences that had seemed manageable until they weren't. I think we would have been okay, I said finally. Not great, not terrible, just okay. And I think both of us deserve more than okay. Yeah, she nodded slowly. Yeah, you're right. We do. Todd called her name from across the yard, waving her over to where a group was gathering. I should go, she said. But Marcus, thank you for being kind, for not being an asshole about everything. You could have been. You would have had every right to be, but you weren't. And I appreciate that. You're welcome. She walked away, back to Todd, back to her life, back to her future. I watched her go and felt finally, completely, the severing of whatever thread had still connected us. It wasn't painful, it was just complete. I stayed for the rest of the party, talked to people, ate too much barbecue, helped Dev clean up after everyone left. Drove home to my house in the hills, the house that had been the catalyst for all of this. The house that was both proof and prize. And I realized something as I pulled into my garage past the Range Rover and the vintage Porsche, into this physical manifestation of success. The house didn't matter. The money didn't matter. Proving something to Sarah didn't matter. What mattered was that I'd built something, not just the company, not just the wealth, but a life, my life. The one I'd chosen, the one that was mine. A year later, I met Elena. She was an architect, brilliant, funny, with strong opinions about mid-century modern design and an unexpected love for terrible reality TV. We met at a gallery opening, started talking about the art, ended up getting coffee that turned into dinner that turned into a walk along the beach at midnight. She knew who I was. Or rather, she knew about the house sale, about the company, about the money. It was all public record by then, the tech press having covered the acquisition story when it happened. But she didn't care. Or rather, she cared about me more than she cared about any of that. On our third date, I took her to my house. Not as a flex, not as a proof of anything, just because she'd asked to see it. Curious in her professional capacity about the architecture, the design choices, the way the space had been conceived. She walked through it the way an architect walks through a space, touching walls, looking at sightlines, asking questions about load-bearing structures and natural light patterns. It was completely different from Sarah's tour with Todd. This wasn't about value or status or comparison. It was about understanding how a space worked, how it felt, how it held its inhabitants. "It's beautiful," she said, standing on the back terrace at sunset. "But it's lonely." "What do you mean?" "It's designed for a family, for people, for life. But you're here alone. The space is waiting for something." "For what?" She turned to look at me, her eyes serious. "For you to live in it, really live in it. Not just exist here, but fill it with people and noise and mess and life. This isn't a museum, Marcus. It's a home. It should feel like one." She was right. Of course she was right. I'd been living in this house like a visitor, like I was afraid to disturb anything, like I needed to keep it perfect for some hypothetical future rather than using it for my actual present. "Help me," I said. "Help me make it feel like a home." And she did. Over the following months, Elena helped me transform the house from a showcase into a space. We hung different art, pieces we found together at local galleries, stuff that wasn't valuable but that we loved. We rearranged furniture to be more comfortable rather than more photogenic. We filled the guest rooms with actual guests, friends who came to visit, my mom who stayed for a week, Elena's sister and her kids who splashed in the pool and left wet towels everywhere. We cooked elaborate meals in the kitchen, sometimes successful and sometimes disasters. We watched terrible reality TV in the home theater, laughing at the manufactured drama. We read in the library, our legs tangled on the couch, companionably silent. We made love in rooms I'd never used, christening the space with actual life. And slowly the house became mine. Not in terms of ownership, it had always been mine legally. But mine in the way that matters, mine in the sense of belonging. Mine in the way a house becomes a home when you stop performing success and start living life. Elena moved in after a year. We got married after 2. Small wedding, close friends and family, ceremony in the backyard overlooking the city. My mom cried. Dev gave an embarrassing best man speech. Elena's dad, who'd been skeptical of me at first, pulled me aside and said, "You treat her right, you hear me?" And I promised I would. We turned one of the guest rooms into a nursery when Elena got pregnant. Painted it a soft yellow, filled it with books and toys and a rocking chair Elena's grandmother had given us. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday morning, tiny and perfect and loud, and we brought her home to the house and suddenly every room felt necessary, felt important, felt alive. I don't think about Sarah much anymore. Sometimes I see something online, a post on LinkedIn about her making senior partner, a charity event she and Todd attended, normal life markers of normal people living normal lives. I hope she's happy, hope their kid is healthy, hope they built something good in their house in Pacific Palisades. But it doesn't matter to me the way it used to. She's not a wound anymore, not a what if, not a proof point. She's just someone I used to know, someone who helped shape me, for better and worse, but who isn't part of my story anymore. Dev still brings it up sometimes, usually after a few drinks. "Remember when Sarah and Todd showed up to tour your house? Remember their faces? That was the greatest moment of my life, and it wasn't even my life. And I laugh because it is funny in retrospect. It's funny in the way that life is funny, full of perfect ironies and cosmic timing and moments that feel like they were written by someone with a dark sense of humor. But it's not the point of my story, it's not the climax or the resolution or the moment everything changed. The point is what came after. The point is building a life that matters, not because it proves something to someone else, but because it's yours. The point is finding people who see you, really see you, and choosing to be seen. The point is turning a house into a home, success into satisfaction, achievement into joy. The point is that revenge is cold and empty, but living well, really living well with people you love and a life you built, that's the opposite of cold. That's warm. That's full. That's enough. 5 years after Elena and I got married, on a random Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I was in my home office, the casita by the pool, the one I'd mentioned to Sarah and Todd during that weird tour. I was on a call with a potential investor for my new company, this one focused on affordable housing technology, because making millions is one thing, but doing something that matters is another. I ignored the doorbell at first, assuming Elena would get it, but it rang again, insistent. "Can you hold on 1 second?" I said to the investor. "Someone's at the door." I walked to the front door and checked the security camera, and there, standing at my gate, was a face I hadn't seen in person in years, Sarah. Alone this time. No Todd, no realtor, just Sarah in jeans and a t-shirt, her hair shorter than I remembered, looking nervous. I almost didn't open the gate, almost let it ring until she gave up and left. But curiosity won out. It always does. I buzzed her in, met her at the front door. "Hi," she said. "Hi. I'm sorry for showing up unannounced. I know that's weird, but I was in the area and I don't know what I thought, but I wanted to talk to you." "Okay." She looked past me into the house, and I saw her notice the changes. The scattered toys, the family photos on the wall, the signs of actual life being lived here. "You have a family," she said. "I didn't know. Didn't come up in conversation." "Right, of course." She looked uncomfortable, like she was regretting the impulse that brought her here. "Listen, I'll make this quick. I'm writing a book about my career, about women in law, about work-life balance and all that. And there's a chapter about my divorce, about how I thought I knew what I wanted, but I didn't. About how I judged someone's potential based on the wrong metrics. About me, about us, about what I learned from getting it so wrong." She paused. "I wanted your permission to write about us, to be honest about my mistakes. I've changed names, changed details, but you'd probably recognize the story. And I didn't want to publish it without asking you first." I thought about that. Thought about being a case study in someone else's redemption narrative. Thought about my story being used as a lesson in someone else's book. "What does Todd think about this?" I asked. "Todd and I are divorced," she said quietly. "Last year. It was amicable. We wanted different things. Story of my life, apparently." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was the right choice for both of us." She smiled, but it was sad. Turns out I'm better at giving career advice than relationship advice. So the book is my way of trying to make sense of my life, trying to be honest about my failures so maybe other people can avoid them. And you were a big failure, Marcus. Not you, I mean, you're not a failure, but my treatment of you, my inability to see you, that was a failure. And I want to own that. But I also want to respect your privacy. I looked at this woman I'd once loved, this woman who'd hurt me and left me and inadvertently set me on the path to everything good in my life. This woman who was trying, in her way, to make amends. "You can write about us," I said, "but can I ask you to change one thing?" "What?" "Don't make me the hero of your story. Don't make this a cautionary tale where you're the bad guy who missed out on the perfect man. We were both imperfect. We both made mistakes. We both grew from it. Just make sure that comes through. Make sure it's honest, not just dramatic." She nodded slowly. "I can do that. Thank you, Marcus." "You're welcome." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Are you happy? Really happy?" I thought about Elena, probably inside making lunch. Thought about our daughter, at kindergarten learning to read. Thought about my new company, smaller than the last one, but focused on problems that mattered. Thought about this house, finally a home, finally lived in and loved. Yeah, I said, Sean, I really am. Good. And she meant it, I could tell. You deserve it. She walked away, out the gate. Out of my life again. This time, probably for good. I went back to my office, finished my investor call, worked for another hour on spreadsheets and projections and all the boring details of building something new. And then Elena called me inside for lunch. We ate together, the three of us, at the kitchen table we'd picked out together. Not IKEA this time. Something solid and expensive and built to last. But the principle was the same. Furniture chosen together, assembled together, lived with together. Our daughter spilled juice on the table. Elena laughed. I cleaned it up, and I thought, this is it. This is the life Sarah couldn't see. This is the happiness that couldn't be measured in square footage or salary figures. This is what I built when I stopped trying to prove anything to anyone except myself. This is enough. This is everything. This is home. They say living well is the best revenge. I say living well is the best life. The revenge is just a bonus. And standing in my kitchen that afternoon, my wife's hand on my back, my daughter laughing at something only 5-year-olds find funny, my house full of life and love and the beautiful mess of actually living, I wasn't thinking about revenge at all. I was just thinking about how lucky I was to be here, in this moment, in this life. The life I built, the life I earned, the life I deserved.